Welcome here to race 17 of the third season of the Dark Horse Racing Series. We are here at the Texas Motor Speedway, a mainstay on the schedule. It's the third straight year that we've come to this D-shaped mile-and-a-half speedway, and maybe no more so has it had a prevalent spot on the schedule. It's our penultimate race on the season. They say everything's bigger in Texas, no more so than the big picture that Texas is going to give us after tonight of what type of a championship battle we're going to have heading into the season finale at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm Seth Cole, being joined by Scott Rankin, and Scott, 120 laps in store for these guys here tonight. Obviously, last week, Detroit Belle Isle playing a big part into what the championship battle looks like. A couple of drivers going to be using Texas to maybe play catch-up to actually make this a championship fight next week.
Detroit? Wrong road course, Seth. You weren't here, that's why you don't know. It was Long Beach.
One of them tough road courses.
It's okay. I understand. You're an oval guy. You turn in circles. Anytime there's right-handers, you get them all confused. It's okay.
That's right.
I understand.
Anytime I turn right, I'm in trouble.
Steering wheel only go left.
Right.
Yeah. Look. Tonight's going to be a difficult race. Actually, I mean, you look at it, and on the surface, we've obviously got a lot of official races running here this week in terms of iRacing formats, but all of them are stock car races. The stock cars, you are having to lift off. You are really having to preserve tires. Indy cars, completely and utterly the opposite thing. This is a super speedway for these guys.
As you mentioned, not in the booth last week, so kind of having to remind myself of where these guys were last week, but did watch that race, and I mean, it just kind of seems like the Rick Ravon train has no brakes. He has just kind of left everybody in the dust. It's obviously still early to say, but right now, just looking at the points coming in tonight, if Rick Ravon finishes up inside the podium here tonight, that might be championship done before we even get to next week.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Ravon prior to the broadcast, and that's exactly what he said. A podium here tonight, and I can go out at the next race at Indy, and I can just enjoy the race for what it is instead of, I'm here for a championship. I'm just out there. I'm enjoying myself from driving the car. So his goal is to tick it off because it just takes so much stress away from Indy. And I mean, Indy's such a big ultimate race, and you're gonna see so many ring-ins just show up for Indy. So it's one of those ones whereby, yeah, it's probably a very readable race because it is a longer format race. You've got to try and set yourself up for those sorts of things. But at the same time, there's so many more question marks that get hung over. So his target tonight is P3.
Now Nick DeGroot sitting atop the board in qualifying. Third in the point standings, 92 points out, the former champion. And, it's interesting. We'll be talking more about this during the course of the evening. But, in the case that we have Rick Ravon wrap up the championship here tonight, it would be the third straight season that we head into the Indy 500 weekend with the championship already decided. And that kind of maybe makes it a little bit more exciting for the fans in the regard that everybody's just going to be in the Indy 500 trophy hunting. We're going to maybe see a lot more aggressive moves made in that case than if there was actually a championship on the line.
Thing, Seth, I think it just opens up and it relaxes all the drivers as well. If you get to Indy and things are kind of locked in, you just breathe a sigh of relief, and it's about having fun. It's about celebrating the unique aspects of the Indy car at Indianapolis. It's about celebrating everything that is this league, and the Dark Horse guys. They all talk to each other quite extensively, and the guys are actually a really tight knit bunch, and it's so much fun to be in and amongst them. I actually got a invite from Matt Wagner to go and join these guys over at Area 51 last night for my first race, and I definitely felt that it's a very big community aspect and heavily focused on working together and having some fun and look, to be perfectly honest, it flows over here to Dark Horse, and can't say enough about all of these guys and can't say enough about the support that they all give each other.
Well, Rick Ravon's going to be rolling off from the 14th position here tonight. We've seen how sometimes he doesn't exactly qualify all that well, but he's certainly up there at the front when it matters the most. Henry Bennett on the flip side, the guy that is the closest to him in the point standing, 64 points back, going to start on the outside of the front row. So we've talked already about what Rick Ravon needs to do to wrap up the championship. What's the scenario that you need to have happen here if you're Henry Bennett to at least mathematically have a shot at that championship next week?
You got to win. First and foremost, you have to win. Anything less than that, and all of a sudden, Ravon's options for closing out the championship just open up that little bit wider. So a first here will certainly keep him alive. That's what he's got to focus on. Ultimately, for Henry Bennett, he can't do anything about Rick Ravon, right? The only thing he could do about Rick Ravon is wreck Ravon him. But that's not realistic, and that's not Henry Bennett's style of racing either, which is the benefit there. So ultimately, all he's going to do is keep his eyes forward, focus on what he can do and what he can do alone, worry about everything else later. If Ravon finishes third, there's nothing he could have done anyway.
19 drivers took time. 20 drivers will take the green flag. 20th place will be Joseph Morales. You'll notice a name in the grid that we haven't seen since mid-September. That, of course, is Robert Maleska III, the outgoing champion. We didn't see him since Twin Ring Motegi, and he'll be rolling off on the inside of row number 3. Now, this race has had two different aspects in the 2 seasons that it's been run. We ended up having some very long green flag runs and only 5 cautions 2 seasons ago. Last season, we saw the caution a little more often, though. 9 times it waved. What do we expect to see here? Because, I mean, in terms of the speedway racing that we've seen in the last few weeks, it's really seemed like these guys have been able to settle themselves into long green flag runs. We've seen strategy come into play. Granted, we had an untimely caution back at, I believe it was Motegi, that kind of shuffled the field up, but I mean, for the most part, though, these guys, they've done really well in racing aggressive, but racing very clean.
For sure. They did do a quick shootout of the entire field, trying to get together, generate some pack racing. It was problematic. The cars pretty much from the second, probably more so the third row on backwards, are pushing very, very much. Ultimately, like I said, it's a super speedway style race, so they're just going to keep their foot on the floor as the green flag flies, and you know, it's going to be all about drafting and setting up your moves based on drafting overtakes, but there will be some tire that plays into this as well at the very back end of the stint.
Nick DeGroot with a victory this season. That was at a mile-and-a-half track, Kentucky Speedway, so looking for his second mile-and-a-half victory. Maleska III started third. He's now to second, jumping up there the top side, trying to see if he can get to the right rear of Nick DeGroot for the race lead. And that's Eric Peterson now looking to the inside. 3-way fight for the top spot as DeGroot leads lap number 1.
And that's it. Just breathe on the throttle a little bit. A long race here tonight, 120 laps. Get yourself through those. This front pack, what they'll be focused on is setting themselves up for success at the tail end of things. Rick Ravon sends it 3 wide in the back.
And it's like a second group back there. You've got about 7-8 cars up in the lead pack, and then the rest of the field back in Group 2. Eric Schaus currently leading that pack, and Rick Ravon going to jump to the outside of him. Jim Herrick back in this group. Craig Forsyth in the 27. Jimmy Drine in the 99. Some fast cars back here. We'll have to see if they're going to be able to get the second pack up here with that first pack, make it a big group once again. Outside line did not work there for Maleska, though. He ended up dropping way to the back tail end of this lead group. Same for Eric Peterson. So it looks like, at least for the moment, the longer way around the racetrack is not the way to go.
No, and that's what the drivers were saying too in the pre-race section, Seth. If you can defend that inside line, nobody is going to be able to make a pass on you. If you know what you're doing down there and you know how to run the line and you can keep it there, ain't nothing that's going to happen on the high line. You've got to make sure that you can get your car painted onto that white line without touching it.
It's really interesting, too, because I was kind of looking through the stats of the past 2 races and looking at maybe a driver that's been consistent with the numbers here at this mile-and-a-half to keep an eye on. It seems like everybody that had a good run back in Season 2 then didn't have a good run in Season 3 or vice versa. So pretty much it seems like Texas Motor Speedway, it's where the chips fall is where you end up finishing. Now, Nick DeGroot is a driver that does have a top 5 finish here. That was 1 year ago, 4th position, and both of our former winners at this track are in the field here tonight. Maleska took the checkered flag here back in Season 3, and Covey Moore was the inaugural winner here under the Dark Horse banner back in Season 2.
Yeah, and keep your eyes back here, Seth. Remember what I said about giving up that bottom line? If you give that up, you're just going to rail backwards. Keep your eyes on Eric Schaus. Schaus gave up the bottom line. He was leading this second group. All of a sudden, he's just going to slowly get shuffled further and further and further back because no one's going to let him back down there. This is what you have to prevent.
Yvonne gets by. That's Forsyth in the blue and white 27 to the inside. The aforementioned Covey Moore in that Aqua Machine on that inside line, currently running 3rd on the bottom and currently in the 13th position. As up at the front, David Cook has now slotted into 2nd place. And last week was big, not only for Rick Ravon, David Cook, another 1-2 finish for those guys. Ravon his 5th victory on the season, but it was big as well for the team overall because after last week, the 1-2 finish, Patriot Speed, that two-car team, was able to jump to 4th in the team standings, bypassing Dark Horse Racing, dropping them down to 5th.
And what a great effort from the drivers of the Gould Charger and the Norton Spirit as well. It was phenomenal. I've been talking to them quite a bunch throughout the week. They said, there was no team orders there. They weren't harassing things. Other drivers think different. Oh, car on the fence.
Herrick, and I believe that's Kobe Moore.
It is. Oh, that's a broken right rear tire. Broken right rear suspension. He's got a wheel off the ground from Kobe Moore.
Oh, and then we got another car that just wrecked there too. Todd Schneider. 86 just went around. I don't know what happened to him. It looked like he was going to get through unscathed. I think might have gotten a little help from behind from Joseph Morales, perhaps, as them were trying to slow come into the vicinity. And there you see what you're talking about there. Kobe Moore trying to get that thing back to pit road and looping it around on the apron with that suspended left front.
Yeah, so it was a left front. So Schneider's on the gas, trying to pull it up, locks all 4 tires up. I think he gets out of that one.
Look what happened down the back straightaway.
He just fires, he gets the car down into first gear and tries to pick up the accelerator, does so too aggressively and fires it into the outside fence. So it's a secondary spin, not a result of the first one.
That's kind of why I wonder if he got help from behind. Just the fact that when I first saw him, he looked like that car was in good shape. Next thing we see him posting down to the inside wall and with the whole front wing missing. So we saw what happened to him, and it kind of just looked like of Jim Herrick a little too wide there off of turn number 2, bounces off the wall, collects up Kobe Moore. That's obviously going to be something these drivers will have to worry about during the course of this race, that right front tire heating up and that tight sensation of course, especially if you're back in traffic.
Yeah, so a couple things to really think about and use your head on a little bit here, Seth. Talking to a lot of the drivers, a whole bunch of them, I heard the shortest number I heard in terms of pit stop length or green flag run is 31. Other than that, the drivers seem to be saying 33 is the length, maybe 34 if you spend the entire time running in the draft, lower RPMs running around in 6th gear, but you're going to be hanging off the tail end of the pack to be able to make that happen. So this, for a lot of the field, they would have just filed through pit lane here just to take that top off. This is a really good opportunity to get some fuel into the car and extend that run. The problem they've got here is that they're right on the limit now with this 10-lap splash of being able to make it home on one less stop. But they are going to have to conserve. Nick de Groot, the reason why he's staying out is that it does not alter his strategy at all. He's been running up at the front. He's been running out in front of the arrow. And therefore, he's not had the assistance to save any fuel. So his strategy will always be the same here. Next caution, you'll see him pit, because the next caution will change up the strategy quite dramatically.
De Groot, Hobson, and Teed, your top 3 with the drivers that did not pit under this yellow. Everybody else was down pit lane under this caution to top off the fuel tank. David Cook, the first off pit road, so he and Henry Bennett will complete the top 5. Matt Wagner, Eric Peterson, Maleska III, Rick Ravon, and Craig Forsyth. That's going to be the top 10 here for the upcoming restart, which is moments away with the lights out atop the iRacing pace car, and Nick de Groot going to be the control car to get us back underway on lap 13.
I'd like to take you back to last week, Seth. I kind of missed you in the booth because I had to deal with Matt. Matt's not as down on the milkshake references. So.
Oh, yeah. You need a milkshake, buddy.
Yeah, I need one. I've just got to boil the kettle. Benefits of a wireless headset. I can get up, I can talk from way behind my screens and boil the kettle, get myself all settled in. Because this one's going to be a long race here tonight. The other thing that I just remembered as well, this is a track position race. That's why de Groot stayed out. And de Groot last night in the Area 51 race made a huge strategy call over Henry Bennett, which held him out front for an extended period of time. Very difficult to overtake there. Same here. So this is de Groot using some heads-up pit strategy.
So with that being said, I mean, Rick Ravon qualified back in 14th. He's up to 9th. Obviously, it's going to be maybe a slow, almost painstaking method of trying to get his way up there to the front. Not able to maybe cut his way through traffic as easily as we've seen him do at other tracks.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, again, it's remember what I said about not surrendering that bottom line. You maintain that bottom line, you hang on to that, you'll be all good to go. There's nothing not a lot of people can do. You can actually see Rayvon starting to cut his way through the field as well, keeping his eyes back. He just forced Maleska a little bit up the track because Maleska left the door open just fractionally, and Rayvon just put his car down there and said, hey, look, this is my line now, you're going to slide it back. I'm wondering, okay, remember what I just said? There's an ability to shorten the number of stops. You have to take car in the infield.
Jimmy Drynan in the 99, no caution as that car actually does not go completely around. It does come to a stop and out of harm's way, so no yellow flag going to wave for the spinning 99.
Yeah, so Maleska's drifting back through this pack here, Seth, because remember what I said on that last caution period? You can make it home from here on one less stop if you fuel save. You're going to have to fuel save the entire race to make that one. And the last pit stop, you're going to be running out there on your own, which means that there's so much more emphasis on fuel saving right here, right now.
Ooh, man, that was close between our top two in points. Rick Rayvon and Henry Bennett nearly had left front to right rear wheel contact off of turn 2. And pushing up the track is Rick Rayvon into his teammate David Cook, who almost got the outside wall off of turn 4. Things really sketchy here just inside the latter half of the top 5.
Yeah, you gotta be careful there. That's teammates working together. That should next to no time ever happen. And they've just allowed Henry Bennett to take this one over. You know what? I think Bennett just looked at Rayvon coming there. You recognize that the guy's gonna make an overtaking move. You recognize the guy's trying to get aggressive. I just think he went, there's too much of this race left. I'm gonna let this one go.
Side by side between these two for 4th place. David Cook looking on. You've also got Matt Wagner back there in the purple 11. Eric Schaus trying to battle with Craig Forsyth. I think he actually had to lift off of turn 2 on that inside line. Forsyth and Peterson going to pass him on the outside line. Things still wadded up from about 4th place on back. It's now Wagner and Forsyth side by side. That's P7.
Yeah, and I think these guys need to really settle it down, look through their crystal balls and see what they can find coming their way in the future. I think we're going to get another caution here, Seth. When that caution flies and how it impacts these guys' strategy is critical. They need to manage this. They need to set themselves up for success. Something I was talking to a few of the drivers early on about is plan for chaos and then hope it doesn't happen. That's the best way to set up your race. Be ready to be adaptable with your strategy.
I know that obviously he had a left front off the ground, and so that led to him spinning around there on the apron. But going back to the Kobe Moore thing, I mean, you know, there's a huge transition of banking down to the rather flat apron and access road here. When we're looking ahead towards green flag pit stops, I mean, how difficult it's going to be for these guys to get these things woed down, not only to pit road speed, but not have the back end step out, because I think we talk about all the time here with these Indy cars, and they tell us as well, the longer we get into a run, that fuel cell starts to empty, the back end of the car gets lighter and lighter.
Yeah, so let's talk about a few attributes of this car here tonight and how the way it's going to develop through the run. Last 5 laps of a run, yeah, it's going to be interesting actually. None of the drivers have had 30-lap runs in a pack. So none of these drivers have the ability to predict how the cars are going to handle with that error. I'm expecting them to get a little bit tighter, but when that fuel cell burns down the rear end, they said, the last 5 laps of a run, the car really starts to get loose and the rear wants to dance around just a little bit. I expected it to get a little bit tighter. I expected more weight on the front end of the car. Not the case. The other thing is pit stops. You need to get to the bottom. Remember what I was talking about? Don't give up the bottom of the racetrack. That's where you want to be. Well, guess where you have to enter the pit lane from. All of the drivers said to me tonight that they are most concerned about green flag pit stops. That's when they think the big cautions will come that'll take out multiple cars.
Especially with the fact that usually when we come to tracks like this, we expect to see what we're seeing right now, kind of IndyCar pack racing, drivers in close proximity to each other. And so if you're going to be coming to pit lane and you've got 2, 3, 4 cars right behind you, there's got to be a lot of communication of, hey, I'm coming this time. Make sure you afford me the room that I need to be able to get onto pit road safely, not just for my sake, but for your sake as well.
Yeah, and Charles T, during the driver's briefing, he actually said to everyone, hey, look, make sure that when you're coming to pit road here, you let everyone know around you. We need to see communications in the chat bar up above, as well as verbal communications if you're able to do that. So they did set a minimum standard for these drivers pitting.
Charles Teed, the third driver that did not come to pit road, now under fire from drivers who did to top off the fuel tank. Rick Rayvon, David Cook, Craig Forsyth right there. This battle going on about a little more than a second behind race leader Nick DeGroot, and Rick Ravon, he has been able to actually make the top side work. It's been a combination of using the side draft. He's also had his teammate David Cook jump up there to offer him some drafting help. So I guess if you've got some friends and you got a fast enough race car, that second lane is viable, but you need both of those things to work together.
Yeah, you got to have the whole pack sort of working together here. And again, T just says, hey guys, I'm just going to hang down here on the bottom. Come get me. Now, additionally, I was having a look at AJ Hobson. This is a phenomenal run here for AJ Hobson. I mean, look at the guy. He has been having, I wouldn't say a season to forget, but I would definitely say not an overall strong season. But of the last 5 rounds, he's been up in the top 5 and running really high up for an extended period of time. He's in the breakaway right now with Nick DeGroot. And you know what? DeGroot's burning more fuel than him.
I can tell you one position that Hobson does not want to finish in here tonight. That's 19th, because in the last 2 seasons, he has finished 19th here at the Texas Motor Speedway. Right now,
Ravon!
Oh, big hit! Caution is out. That was teammates. David Cole, we got another car still wrecking on the extra. I think that's Ravon even
It's
still.
Ravon.
Oh, man, both of the teammates.
It wasn't, that's not what triggered it. Ravon made initial contact with the rear end of Teed. I think Teed pushes up off the bottom fractionally, and Ravon's expecting him to hold it down there. It's so late, so small an amount of time to actually react to that one. It's difficult, and when you're doing the speeds that these guys are, above 200 mile an hour for most of the track here, it's difficult. But if Ravon goes a lap down here, that will be night over, and you know what? That opens up opportunity for guess who? Henry Bennett, who's sitting there in 4th.
Yeah, I'm not certain Ravon will go a lap down as he's trying to limp that thing back to pit road. David Cook, on the other hand, that could be an entirely different matter because his car got wedged, I believe, into the inside safer barrier just off of turn number 2, and he had to actually tow his car to pit lane. Here's a look at it again, and oh man, that's some hard licks. Teed and Cook going airborne. Oh, and another car getting a piece of it there.
I think it was Bennett, actually.
One of Dale Brooks, I think?
I thought it was Bennett. No, but Bennett's at the front end of that pack, so it's not Bennett. Yeah, it's one of the Brookses.
One of the Brooks, yeah. Might have been Jim.
I just saw what caused that. It's Teed caught the apron on the entry to 1.
It certainly looked like the 50 just snapped around.
So yeah, that one is all caused by the fact that that Charles Teed just fractionally, and I'm talking, he literally touched it with the smallest edge of his front left tire. He just about missed it, and that just pushes him up the track. Nothing the pack can do. And to be perfectly honest with you, Seth, that is the amount of room for error that you've got in this race here tonight.
And it was indeed the 51 of Jim Brooks who made the secondary contact there with Rick Ravon. Take a look at where the 24 of David Cook ends up after this wild ride. Oh, actually, it's hard to tell there. It moves so fast, but he might have actually had some contact, might have actually hit. I think that was the 4 of Dylan Moskowitz that he might have bounced off of. Double check back here and see if indeed that was the case, because I think he bounced off the top of another car.
Potentially.
It might have been Eric Peterson. Let's actually look from the onboard on the 36 and see if indeed there was contact made. Well, nope, I guess not. Contact with the banking just up above him.
I did hear somebody say that they thought they saw a car flipping under caution. And it is. There was a car flipping. It was Rick Ravon. Rick Ravon tried to maintain that car on the track, tried to keep the car going so that he didn't go a lap down when he came down to finally get his fast repair. And he flips off the barrier because the car is crabbing so heavily that he can't keep the car running in a straight line.
Wow.
It's a risky call by Ravon. It is a very, very risky call. But when he's in the situation that he's in, he needs as much time as possible so he can cut back through the pack. That's what he's trying to keep himself on the lead lap. Instead, he sent himself 3 or 4 laps down.
There it is, as you described. Looked like the left tires caught the infield grass. That, in turn, got him loose and up and into the wall. And we know with these open-wheel machines that those exposed tires, they get up into the wall, and sometimes they will actually grab the wall, and that will send the car up into the air. And that's a wild ride there for Rick Ravon. He was the only driver that actually wasn't flipping or barrel rolling out of the three that wrecked over there in turn one. Didn't escape a barrel roll, though, apparently, with that wild ride into turn one under pacing.
Wow, that is massive. All of a sudden, remember what I was talking about Henry Bennett earlier on in the night? What he needs to do is he just needs to run his best race and do all he can do. He can't worry about anyone whatsoever. One of the big focuses of Rick Ravon over the last few weeks, and indeed one of his real strengths as a driver and strengths has been his race pace. The problem is he's putting so much focus in on the race pace, he's neglecting qualifying a little bit. I know his strategy tonight was he didn't do any laps on the qualifying setup whatsoever, except with about 5 minutes to go in practice. It's the first time he went out in the qualifying setup. That means his race pace, his race structure, everything is focused towards doing well in the race. I think tonight, he needed to put a little bit more emphasis on qualifying because the emphasis on track position was major. He got himself buried in that pack. Somebody makes a mistake, and that's him out.
And right now, he is 2 laps down, and there are lap machines ahead of him as well, so it would take him a couple of cautions potentially to get back in the lead lap, unless he's able to pass Charles Dean, David Cook. They're all on the same lap, 2 laps down to Nick DeGroot, who gets us back underway. Hobson, Forsyth, Bennett, and Schaus currently completing the top 5. As Ravon runs at this point in time, bonus points not withstanding, he is in line to receive 12 race points. So that is a huge opportunity for Henry Bennett to be able to eat into the 64-point lead that Ravon had on him coming into tonight.
Yeah, and if Bennett gets out there and wins it, all of a sudden the notch just gets turned up just a few fractions. Now it's been twisted. Somebody's reached in there and they've grabbed the championship excitement, the championship drama knob, and they've just cranked it to 12. They've went so far past 11, they made a new notch.
Definitely did, as the battle's going to be 3-way for the 4th position. Eric Schaus, Henry Bennett, and Eric Peterson. Now, again, not counting in the bonus points, if Henry Bennett's able to win this race, Rick Ravon finishes back where he is. That is a net gain of 38 points that Henry Bennett is going to pick up on Rick Ravon in just race points alone. Consider the fact that that would be more than half of the points he was behind Rick Ravon coming into tonight's event. That would make things very interesting heading into the Indianapolis 500, which, oh, by the way, Henry Bennett has taken part in the last 2 Dark Horse Racing Series Indy 500s. Rick Ravon, in about a week's time, will be making his debut.
Yeah, but Ravon's been there. He's done it. He's raced in other Indy 500s. The Indy 500 is not a foreign beast to him, so he'll be aware of what he needs to do at that race and how to drive that race as well. It'll come down to the setup quirks and how that runs. Right now, Rick Ravon's running 6 seconds off the front of the lead pack, so he is at risk of going another lap down. The worst part for Ravon here is that he's got no other options. He's just got to run this race now as hard and as fast as he possibly can, put as much time over the leaders as he possibly can. His other alternative is that he tries to fuel save, but he's got no one to save fuel off, Seth.
And on top of that, he's a faster pair in the hole, as are several drivers here with our couple of early cautions. And, know that the aggressiveness is going to kick up the later this race goes on. Even if he gets back on the lead lap, he's not out of the woods yet.
Caution.
Oh, we got another caution. It's going to be Gale Brooks in the 71 on the back straightaway. Saves Ravon, gets him up there with the lead group, but there were 2 cars ahead of him that were also multiple laps down. David Cook would be the recipient of the free pass under this yellow.
I think
Gale
he might
Brooks
be right
still
on Gale
having
Brooks.
trouble.
Yeah. Good call on Gale Brooks.
Go back and take a look at what happened to him. This was again off of turn 2. And looks like that car just maybe got loose. Let's see if he gets some help. Oh, it's Jeff Heisong behind him. Yep, definite help.
He just wasn't. So that this is one of those age-old driver versus driver debates, and particularly with this move, is the driver has the momentum. He's clearly gotten the pass done on the bottom, but the run's going to come back off the top as that driver up on the top side will have a slightly increased momentum compared to the car on the bottom. The car on the bottom comes up to try and clear themselves, to try and put themselves in that path of the car that's behind. And the car at the top just says, you know what? I'm just going to keep my foot in the throttle. I'm not going to let you have this one.
Again, too, I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. yeah, we're focused right now on the championship battle, but there's still drivers all the way through the entirety of the point standings that are trying to finish the best they possibly can before the
For
checkered
sure.
waves in Indianapolis. So, oh, they're not going to roll over for anybody and give up positions. They want to make sure that they have the best finishes possible to end out their season as well.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, there's no reason for the guys right throughout the pack to fight. The thing is, with a championship, as commentators, it's the easiest story for us to focus on that's developing right throughout the race and indeed developing right throughout the season. People want to know what's going on up front. People want to know what the battle is for that win. So that's the one that we really zero in on. But right throughout the pack, every single driver has a championship scenario that they're driving themselves to. And there are stories that play themselves out constantly. There is no way for any broadcaster ever to cover all of the stories right up and down the field. And indeed, some of them, the tale is, went to race, finished where I am in the championship, no margin over the guys ahead of me, no margin over the guys behind me, margin's now too wide indeed for me to even claim any points. I'm just going to have some fun. That is a viable story for a lot of these drivers, and that's broadcasting 101 to all the fans that are out there.
Want to let everybody know here as well that next week, next Wednesday night, is the Dark Horse Racing Series Indy 500 Pole Day qualifying. The Indianapolis 500, the season finale, is actually going to be run next Saturday, and that will be October 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So bear in mind that the season finale does not take place on a Wednesday night. It will be on the weekend. We hope you join us for that. We're still uncertain whether or not we're going to be bringing you coverage of Pole Day qualifying on Wednesday night or not, but definitely keep tuned here to Flatout Racing Network just in case we are, as these drivers will get themselves prepared to not only try to qualify their way into the Indianapolis 500 field, but get that all-important track position, which we've seen has been pretty prevalent in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I mean, I tell you what, I mean, I'm hyped for the Indy 500. It's another great opportunity, another really big name that's out there on the calendar. I did miss out on last season's Indy 500. I mean, it's difficult being an Aussie because a lot of it happens throughout the day, and for you guys over in America, and that's just unfortunately that's throughout the night over here. So, unfortunately, my family members don't enjoy me commentating in the middle of the night, Seth.
Milkshake makes everything better.
Oh, Monster Milkshake, you're right.
The ultimate peace offering.
That's it. They wake up, there's a milkshake sitting beside the bed when they wake up.
Perfect. All is forgiven. Third caution of the night here. We're now a third of the way through this race. DeGroot has had that car out in front pretty much the entirety of the night so far. AJ Hobson has been up inside of the top three most of the evening as well, based off of pit strategy after the first yellow flag. Craig Forsyth, a guy that will be heading into the Indy 500 in a little more than a week's time as a former winner of that event. He lines up in third. Henry Bennett is fourth. Eric Schaus going to complete the top five. Then you got Eric Peterson, Jim Brooks, Jim Herrick, Matt Wagner, and Robert Maleska III. That is your current top 10. You saw the 24 of David Cook go around, get one of his laps back. He and Gail Brooks will be battling for the free pass under this yellow flag. Charles Teed, Rick Ravon, 2 laps down, 6 laps down for Jimmy Drynan, and Covey Moore still sits on pit road. The former winner here at Texas back in season 2, 31 laps down, pretty much out of this event. But we'll see if he comes back onto the racetrack to pick up some spots. There's still a long ways to go in this one. DeGroot back under the green we go here at the Texas Motor Speedway. He'll lead them into turn number 1. The battle looks like right now it's going to be potentially for that third position where we find Forsyth, Bennett, and Schaus.
It's going to be a hard-fought battle between a whole bunch of guys that haven't necessarily been up at the top, and then Henry Bennett, who's in championship contention here. I think what you're going to see is you're probably going to see a little bit more reserved Henry Bennett than you have seen so far. He's got a great opportunity tonight to really pick off a lot of points, and the thing that he doesn't want to do is throw that away, but then again...
And he is in a hornet's nest right now. Eric Peterson, Eric Schaus just ahead of him, racing it up side by side. And you saw Forsyth up on the top side of, I believe that was Hobson, for the second position. A little bit of breathing space back to Matt Wagner, who's leading the second group. And this is the second time on a restart that we've seen the field kind of split up into 2 packs. Is that the case of the single file restarts? Just some of these guys seeing the race leader when he accelerates, being able to do the exact same, and then from about 7th, 8th, 9th place on back, they don't quite get the memo quickly enough?
And I mean, it's all comes down to timing as well. So if you time the restart too early and somebody else in front of you doesn't time it, you have to bail out of the gas. Because if you overtake a car before that green flag actually comes out, you will get a black flag, and that nets you a penalty. So that slots you miles down the traffic, miles down the field. So it's not worthwhile. So you're going to bail out. What that does create is a lot of checking up and a lot of timing of that restart. So restarts are critical, and IndyCar restarts with a single file restart, they're just so different to anything else.
Forsyth on that top side, and he's got no help up there. We've seen how the outside line can work, but you have to have someone up there to be able to create forward momentum in the draft. Now Eric Schaus, after completing the pass, is going to jump up there to the outside line with Craig Forsyth. And now Forsyth says, thank you very much. You leave me the inside line. I'll take it going into turn 3.
Yeah, but following 2 cars going into turn 3, that means he's going to have a lot of aero wake and a lot of aero wash that's just preventing him from getting back to the throttle. I think this is Schaus just saying, hey, I'm just going to be a little bit conservative here. I'm just going to run at the tail end here. He's got Henry Bennett coming down the inside now here as well, so I'm not 100% sure if he'll just let Bennett go on by, but then again, he's fighting Forsyth a lot harder than I thought he would.
You saw Forsyth kind of push up there going into turn 1. I mean, is that something that might possibly allow the second lane to become more and more prevalent as the race goes on? The fact that as the tire heat starts to kick up, especially in that right front, it's going to be a lot more difficult to keep the car pinned down to the inside line.
Yeah, look, I mean, it is potentially, but the thing I'm more concerned about is the high line is the risky line. If you're down there on the bottom and your car starts to push, you've got to bail out. A lot of the times you can't bail out early enough. By the time you react, it's actually already too late. You're going to drift up. So it takes a lot of awareness to run that high line and run it successfully. Speaking of high lines and running it successfully, have a look at Hobson getting all over Nick de Groot here. This is huge. This is, what was I saying before? The guy's just been overperforming the last couple of weeks. He is really coming of age, if you will, within this series.
Last week, a good run. He moved up from 18th to 15th in the overall standings, up 3 positions after last week's road course race, and he's trying to see if he can find victory lane. Hobson was a former winner back in Season 2. It's been a long time since he's been to victory lane. He's trying to see if he can best one of the former champions in Nick de Groot to do so, but now Eric Schaus, big run on the inside line. He's going to go to the second spot. He'll take that momentum and try and jump up to the top side. And going back to your point there about the riskiness of that outside line as well, we're seeing drivers push up on that inside line. If you're the car to the outside of that car that pushes up, guess what? You're the buffer between them and the outside wall, and you're the one that's probably going to go up into that safer barrier.
Yeah, and there's a couple things about where the cars are positioned as well. Whilst ever that car is inside of you and slightly ahead of you, here comes Schaus. He's going to have a shot.
Have help, though, is the question. Now, if he had Hobson behind him, maybe could have kept the forward momentum going. Probably would have had that invisible bubble push. Nobody seems to want to go to the top side there with that 72.
That's fair enough. The other side of the coin here is Schaus maybe just protecting his tires a little bit by running up there as well. So whilst he's competing for the lead, ultimately he's running out there in clear air. There's a lot less wake, a lot less pressure on that right front to try and get the car to turn in. So, yeah, so what were we just about to talk about, Seth? There was something that you said, and it was a very cool point you had coming.
Being the car on the top side,
oh, yeah, the top
between
side.
The inside line car and the wall.
Yes, okay, so there's a couple different ways that you have to manage that. Now, a lot of this comes down to blind spot. We all know, driving our cars out on the road, there are a couple spots right around the car where you've got an A-pillar where you just kind of can't see anything through those zones. So you have to really move your head around. iRacing, unless you're in VR, you actually cannot do that. Even the guys that are on triple monitors aren't really going to be able to see everything. There will be blind spots, and even in VR, you have to crank your head so far to the left, so far to the right to see those cars. If the car is fractionally ahead of you on the bottom line, you can see when they get tight, you can see when they start to drift up, you can manage that. It's when they're sitting in the blind spot, you can't see them, you are trusting and hoping that they know exactly what they're doing and how they're managing it.
Okay, explain this to me as we're on board with Henry Bennett. Notice the number in the center of his wheel up at the top with the flashing lights. That's the gear that he's in. He is actually fluctuating between 5th and 6th gear. 6th gear, kind of a high draft gear. And he keeps kind of jumping between those two different gears. I mean, what is the purpose of this?
Yeah, so fifth gear is going to give you a little bit more, I believe they call it torque. It basically helps you to accelerate. The reason why we use, multiple different gears, so you can see he just shifted down to fifth because he got underneath there of AJ Hobson, and that meant that he wanted the run that fifth gear was going to give him to complete that pass as early as possible so he can stick with the guys ahead. Sixth gear, additionally, when you're running higher in the rev range, sixth gear burns less fuel than fifth gear does. So ultimately, sixth gear is fractionally slower. It won't quite bring you up to speed. But once you're up to speed and you've got the draft, for example, helping you to maintain that higher speed, sixth gear is so much better at staying up there and conserving fuel whilst you do it. Whereas fifth gear is just going to give you that little bit extra horsepower.
So cool to kind of watch that, kind of like a chess match of what move do I make in the situation I'm in, because, to the normal spectator, they may be of the assumption, well, these guys are just mashing down the throttle in the highest gear possible and turning left. No, they are working every single lap, as you saw right there with the onboard on the 007.
And look, you can see what Schaus is doing here is Schaus is trying to get the run. He gets enough of a run that on the entry to 1 and 2, he's at the outside. In fact, he's about 3/4 of the way through getting the pass done on the entry to 1 and 2 on Nick de Groot. But the problem is, the shortest way around the racetrack, it's all the way down at the bottom. These cars have so much downforce, they can just pin the cars down there without losing any speed. So ultimately, he sets up the run to Zarek Schaus, but then to get the run done and get the overtake made, he's got to go the long way around, and you just can't do that.
Four-way battle for the top position halfway through tonight's race here at the Texas Motor Speedway. So let's take the opportunity to give a shout out to our starting grid and finishing results sponsor, LMCgear.com, your one-stop shop for all your motorcycle camping and backpacking needs. Specializing in camp gear that is ultra lightweight and compact, making it perfect for carrying on your motorcycle or in a backpack. And they also carry all the motorcycle accessories you need to get your gear safely down the road. Check them out at lightweightmotorcyclecampinggear.com today. And just like that, in the middle of an ad read, we go from 2 rows of double wide to now single file. What did I just do?
Read some more ads. Maybe an overtake will happen.
Yeah, that's what I need to do, I think. I think I need to do some more ads, and these guys will make it exciting again.
Yeah, look, I mean, a couple things here. AJ Hobson, for my mind, actually might have been, it was Craig Forsyth. Craig Forsyth with what he was trying to do and how he was overworking the car. I think he's just overworked that right front. He's overheated a little bit, burned up a little bit too much of that rubber, so now the grip's just not there. He's gonna tumble through the standings. He's drifted back to the second pack. He'll just disappear off these guys. Now, additionally, we're now 34 laps into this run, so I just heard guys saying we're going to be pitting this time by. It's going to be interesting to see who goes. Nick de Groot won't have a choice. He will be out of fuel for sure, and there's nothing he can do about this here. Bennett is trapped in behind him, so Bennett's either going to commit to the pit lane. Is it this lap? No, it'll be the next lap. I think it'll be the next lap.
Well, de Groot kind of looked like he was starting to migrate down to the inside line, down the back straightaway. Thought maybe he might be coming to pit road at that time, but we'll see what happens here. This is kind of almost like Stock Cars the Super Speedway, and the fact that you're all going to be more than likely coming to pit road in a group. You've got to make sure you're aware of everybody's lifting points. Don't run each other over, because you all want to make it onto pit road safely. Keep your opportunity at winning this race alive, and, well, more the fool me. They are not coming down pit road this time.
So remember what I said as well, the tyres start to wear out at this point in time, and if they've been in the draft, it's going to be the right front, and they haven't been in the draft, it's going to be the right rear. Right rear is going to promote some loose characteristics on the car, meaning it'll turn through the corner at more angle than the corner really warrants, which means that the car will snap a little bit sideways. In these Indy cars, you've got a fraction of the time to try and control that slide before it's gone. Very stiff suspension, the weight transfers around the car very, very quickly. That's the benefit. De Groot's coming in by the way this lap. But if you're in that draft, you're putting a lot of weight on the front right. And what we've seen throughout the run, and this is pretty consistent with all tracks, is understeer. The car just drifts straight up the track. The car basically, you're turning in, and the car just doesn't turn.
De Groot slowing down, heading for pit lane. He may be the only one of the leaders coming down, and I would assume that some of that would be because drivers running behind him were able to get his draft. He was the one pretty much creating the draft for them, and David Cook's on pit road as well.
This is critical. This is critical. Schaus just said he's coming to... Sorry, AJ Hobson just said he was coming to pit lane at the entry to 1 and 2. These guys got that clear air. Schaus got the opportunity to run a very quick lap. Pit lane is going to be critical. Nick de Groot won't have any draft when he exits the track here. So this is critical for just about the entire field.
And you got about 6 drivers on pit road this time. Schaus, Hobson, Craig Forsyth, Jim Brooks, Eric Peterson, all ducking onto pit lane. And you saw there the communication as Hobson took the right lane, Schaus took the left lane, making sure they didn't run each other over. Everybody from that group got on safely. Here comes Henry Bennett from the race lead, smoking those tires, trying to get it woed down at the commitment line.
I tell you what, somebody's blown an engine in the pit lane as well. It's Covey Moore. Covey Moore's done.
Been sitting there for the last 59 or so laps. I'm not exactly certain what happened to him. He took the faster pair on after he was involved in the first caution. I don't know if he was involved in something afterwards or not. So obviously tough break there for him. Jimmy Drynan also made an unscheduled stop about 6 laps ago, and he's still multiple laps down, getting repairs done on pit lane. And how about this? Matt Wagner, Robert Maleska III, Jeff Highsong, they're all staying out. The reason is these guys came to pit road under the last yellow. They can still go maybe another 5-6 laps before they duck onto pit lane.
Everyone came down pit road on the last yellow, Seth, so you're out of that. That's not 100% right. And remember what I said as well at the start of the piece. Remember back to our first race of the season, Michigan, is when Maleska ran in a fuel conservation mode nearly the entire race and just basically blipped everyone because he had to do one less stop and ran the entire last stint out in his own and won the race by a near country mile. I think he's doing the exact same strategy here. Now, these guys don't have the option to turn down the engine wicker, so what they're going to do is they're going to run these cars A, in 6th gear a lot of the time, and B, they'll be bailing out of the throttle. A lot of the guys around the track will be looking to make moves with using their right foot, staying in, trying to shuffle around throughout the packs that they're in. Instead, he's running off the tail end of the pack. Anytime he gets a little bit of a run, he'll bail out of the throttle. That saves some fuel. One lap, yeah, that's not going to save a lot of fuel. Do it for 30 laps, yeah, you start to get 2 or 3 extra laps worth of fuel.
And we've got even more trouble for the points leader coming into this race. Rick Ravon ducked onto pit lane about 2 laps ago, and he is getting more repairs done on that machine. He is 10 laps down to the race leader right now.
That's critical for Rick Ravon. And ultimately, this is a guy that gets very nervous prior to races. It's just in his nature. It's part of his ritual that goes into a race. He sits down. He's so excited for the race and for what's going on. It's why he spends so much time practicing.
Craig Forsyth, Henry Bennett, they've wrecked on the front straightaway. More cars involved there. Eric Schaus has gotten a piece. I think Nick DeGroot was involved. He was. He's flipping through the infield grass.
There's no way DeGroot can get that car refired. He'll be having to tow back to pit lane. There's nothing he can do about that.
Who was going to cycle around back as the leader around the 5th, 6th position? Holy cow. Well, let's just turn this entire race on its head.
Well, now you've got a race whereby everyone's going to have to take the wave around, bar Gail Brooks, who's going to get the lucky dog here, Joseph Morales, Jeff Highsong, Robert Maleska, and Matt Wagner. All of a sudden, Wagner controls the field, and this race has just turned into anyone's game. You a gambler, Seth?
No, I am not. Got a crystal ball, but I don't have a poker chip. Oh, wow, there's what happened. Eric Schaus just up on the top side. The thing steps out on him. He hooks Nick DeGroot in the right rear. There were several others that got involved in that. Todd Schneider driving underneath the 89. Mentioned about Forsyth involved. Henry Bennett, second in the points involved in this one as well. He had to tow. He has a faster pair, but he had to tow, so he's going to more than likely lose a few laps here under pacing. Again, these were drivers that were running, had cycled around to, I believe, 6th through 9th. They were battling to see who was going to be the race leader when everything cycled around with the green flag pit stops, and every single one of them are torn up on the front straightaway after this off of turn 4.
That is just unfortunate. And changing track conditions, changing track temperatures. Track temperature has dropped 7 degrees Celsius. It's going to be, what, 25, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I think?
Yes, we'll actually double check on that here in just a moment. We'll take a look at the weather. Tell you what, with that caution coming out, the timing of that caution coming out, Matt Wagner, Maleska III, Highsong, those guys look like geniuses.
Sure, don't they? What? And I mean, all of a sudden, we've got a race that's, 7 people strong, and 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, all back 1 lap down, and then you've got two laps down, which is Forsyth and De Groot. Bennett and Schneider at 3 laps down, Charles Teed 7. I think Rayvon's done. I honest to God think Rayvon is done. No, Rayvon's back out on the track. He's going to keep going. He's got an opportunity here to gain as many points back as he possibly can, and this is him using his head. At all stages, you have to limit the damage that is going to happen when you're in a championship fight, and Rick Rayvon is going to do all that he possibly can. There may not be a lot that he can do, but he is out there and he's turning laps.
There's about 40 some odd laps that are going to be left when we go back green. Rayvon 11 laps down can turn 7 segments, and he will jump from where he currently is, 18th, up to 15th, because Craig Forsyth, Todd Schneider, and Charles Teed, all ahead of him in the running order, are back in the garage area. And when you think about it, 18th place pays out 12 points, 15th place pays out 15 points. So that's 3 valuable points for him to kind of maintain that buffer between himself and Henry Bennett heading into the season finale.
More critically is the fact that Henry Bennett was involved in that one, and he's gone multiple laps down. If he was at 1 lap down, all of a sudden you just actually go, yeah, Henry Bennett's actually back in this. If he can get himself back to the lead lap, then he's actually in an okay position. He's not. Henry Bennett is multiple laps down here, right? So he can't pick up enough of a points gap back, in my mind, to get himself back into this one. So we'll have to see. I think if it finishes as it is, if it finishes with Henry Bennett 2 laps down, but the lead car 2 laps down, I think it's still over.
Even in the case of Henry Bennett 3 laps down, there are 2 drivers ahead of him that are off the lead lap. Eric Schaus and David Cook, 1 lap down apiece. So it would take at least 3 cautions for Henry Bennett to start getting laps back as the free pass machine. We do have waiver round cars. AJ Hobson, Jim Herrick, Jim Brooks, Eric Peterson, Dylan Moskowitz, all going around to get their laps back, as they were ahead of Matt Wagner after he and the rest of the top 5 came to pit road. So we will have 10 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. And the drivers that stayed out that are going to be up in the top 5 as a result now: Wagner, your new race leader, Maleska the 3rd and 2nd, Jeff Highsong up in 3rd, Joseph Morales making only his 2nd start on the season. He's going to be up in the 4th position, and Hobson looks like he's going to cycle around to 5th. And Gail Brooks is dropping to the back because he was the free pass machine.
Yeah,
so he'll actually drop from 5th back to 10th for this upcoming restart.
Rayvon just said he's off the pace. He's staying out of this one. He's going to get out of everyone's way. He's not interested in fighting this out 1 iota. And that's a smart call. I mean, especially if he does have more damage. If that's the reason he come back down pit road, he lost a few more laps. That's very smart heads-up driving again. But also, there's no reason for him to get involved in anything here and try and push and create more issues than he solves.
We didn't see anything, but I'm almost wondering, Rick Rayvon had already taken on his faster pair. When we last looked at him, he was cutting his way through the field, looked like he was up to speed. I'm almost wondering if the extended stay on pit road for repairs, he might have maybe gotten some damage trying to get onto pit lane, may have wrecked the race car trying to make a green flag pit stop. Not sure what the circumstances were, but lost him a number of laps. He was already running 2 laps down to the leader at the time, as Matt Wagner, the defending Indianapolis 500 winner, so going to be a lot of pressure on this guy when we head into next week, but he is still trying to see if he can end out the season with what would be his 2nd trip to victory lane, previous winner at Watkins Glen earlier on this season.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe that from Matt Wagner. He's not a road course ringer. He's not one of those guys that goes out and knows what performs on road courses. He's just, average. He's punching, as best as he possibly can, but there's a lot going on. Have a look at the Hornet's Nest behind Wagner, though. These are lap down cars. Bennett wants his lap back.
Yeah, Henry Bennett trying to get one of his 3 laps back the hard way.
And De Groot's there with him.
He is indeed. So you've got a lot of guys that are trying to see if they can at least give themselves a shot at maybe getting back on the lead lap here, as we are rapidly approaching the end of this race. We're now into the 2nd, 3rd, and Bennett's going to jump to the top side there on race leader Matt Wagner. You've also got Eric Schaus in this mix, so there's 3 cars right there, and adding Craig Forsyth also in the 27, all off the lead lap. David Cook a lap down. I mean, you've got 0.7 of a second between Matt Wagner and Robert Maleska III. That actually translates to 5 lap machines between those 2 drivers as well.
Yeah, this is such a weird race circumstance. You normally never see anything like this. This is so, off of the book, off of, I couldn't have predicted these circumstances if I tried. Here comes here comes Bennett on Wagner again.
It kind of
This is
reminds me of a
critical.
little bit is the
Oh, Wagner got the apron!
be able to hang on to the bottom though. And then trying that top side. Oh, look at David Cook. Ooh, we got a big run on Henry Bennett. Tried to go up to the third groove, but wasn't quite clear at the back of the 007 as Bennett now going to tuck down in front of Nick DeGroot. But this is kind of reminding me a lot of what we saw back at Iowa when we had the untimely caution. Just about everybody had been to pit road. A couple of drivers stayed out, and you saw a lot of lap machines up there racing with the race leaders, kind of the race within the race. Everybody on their own different lap, their own different agenda.
And that's, you're seeing next to the same here, Seth. I mean, it's just, my word, I could not have predicted this. And if I'd have had 7 of your crystal balls, Seth, this is wild. And the fact of the matter is, Henry Bennett's still trying to get this move run. He needs to get his nose cone underneath Wagner, but now he's defending from Cook. All of these guys want their laps back. Matt Wagner is leading a race where he's not fighting with people, but he is fighting to keep guys a lap down. Wildest race of the season.
I think he's going to do his best Nick DeGroot impression from the first half of this race, where DeGroot did not come off the inside line. He's saying, if you're going to pass me, you're going to have to do it around the top side, because this white line is my best friend.
And I tell you what, when we came to Texas, everyone says everything's bigger than Texas. Well, it might be bigger, but to be perfectly honest with you, this is the Wild West, the way this is performing.
Oh, no doubt about it. It's definitely playing its part into what the championship battle could look like in 1 week's time. I mentioned about the fact that Craig Forsyth out there on the racetrack, I had him behind the wall on my telemetry, but then he came back into the server. He's back on the racetrack, and he is currently ahead of Rick Raybon. So Raybon has moved from 18th now up to 16th, did not pick up that 15th position and that extra point.
And I'm wondering whether Forsyth's doing that intentionally to keep Raybon behind and whether or not there's a little bit of beef there. I mean, there could be anything. Ultimately, Forsyth and DeGroot are on the same lap, so you will see them fighting for position. So DeGroot, the only car that he's directly fighting for position is Forsyth. Bennett's laps ahead of him. Cook's ahead of them. Cook, I think, is actually only 1 lap down at this point in time.
In terms of possible teammateship going on, Craig Forsyth drives for LMCgear.com and Henry Bennett drives for Factory Back Motorsports. So there is no teammateship there in that regard. But yeah, to your point, maybe even just to make it be a close championship battle heading into next week. I mean, I'm certain that there's a lot of guys here. Look at Cook. Wow.
He forced that.
Yes, he did. Henry Bennett wasn't brave enough to do it, but David Cook says, absolutely, you give me an opportunity, I'm going to go by. Now Bennett says, all right, 24 tried it, I'm going to try it.
Well, is there someone in the wall, I thought, in the background, is there coming off of 1 and 2, I thought, all the way up there. Now, the interesting thing is, once Wagner is no longer, Wagner nearly makes contact with Cook.
You got to be careful here. I mean, he's got lap machines around him, and it's about 7/10 back to Robert Mileska III. Last thing you want to do when this race is kind of played into your lap is throw it away.
Wagner's, here's the thing, this is an awkward position for Wagner to be in, because Wagner wants to be fuel saving. He's been running at the head of this field, and remember how many laps early DeGroot had to pit on the rest of the field, just because he was running way up at the front. Mileska is so far back in traffic. Mileska's not pushing. Oh, he is fuel saving.
And just to throw a bit of a spanner in the works here, if tonight's race hasn't been crazy enough, according to my numbers, they cannot make it from when we went back green to the checkered flag. Pit road still has a part to play in this race.
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder if, when that caution gets triggered, ultimately, I wonder if Henry Bennett's actually trying to save some fuel, make sure he can go an extra couple laps on everybody else here. That would be critical in my mind if he can do that, because that last caution, I think, is going to happen when the guys come back down pit road.
We ended up having that last caution come out with 4 drivers that had been to pit road. They all accordioned up. We're all racing nose to tail for what was going to be eventually first back to fourth. I mean, make sure that you're not in a situation like that if you're someone like Wagner, like Mileska. Do you come to pit road as early as you possibly can? Do you stretch it as far as you possibly can? I mean, what's the strategy now? Because it kind of looked like 4 different drivers, 4 varying strategies, all in the same place at the same time. It didn't work out for guys like DeGroot, Schaus, and Bennett.
I mean, when they cycled around through pit lane, basically they fed back into the pack, just behind the pack, and Rayvon's now running so far off the pace that he's been caught by all the leaders. He's running high, he's trying to stay out of everyone's way. Something else that just occurred to me as well is Cook is fighting Rayvon's battle for him by proxy. These are teammates, right? So him and Bennett going toe-to-toe, that's not critical necessarily for each other's championship battle, it's critical for their teammates' championship battle. Keep that in the back of your mind as well here, Seth. If I can find a window whereby I can bring the car out of pit lane and I can run it on that white line the whole time, flat stick, I think I'm going to undercut. And any time that I can get to pit road, I can come down and I can run my own laps without having to deal with the aero effects, without the draft, I think that's the best time to pit.
Wagner now going to let a couple of more lap machines around him. That's Nick DeGroot in the bright yellow car just ahead. Eric Schaus, the bright green car just behind. And you saw the red and black 91 of Maleska III just peeking into the picture. He's now decided it's the time to get up there to the back of the 11 of Matt Wagner. So the battle for the lead may be on momentarily. Another driver that's had a very good season is Jeff Hysong, 9th in the overall standings coming to this one, a teammate for Maleska. And we talked about the fact that you can make the outside line work if you have somebody to work with you. Maleska, perfect situation right now with the 18 in tow.
Yeah, let's see if those two can work together. And what this says to me for Robert Maleska is he's hit a critical number and a critical lap whereby he can no longer save another lap's worth of fuel. What that means is now he doesn't need to worry about fuel saving anymore. He has to push on. He cannot possibly get any benefit from saving any more fuel. So go for it, buddy. Put the wicker on, put the foot to the floor and start making some spots.
With those passes that were made, David Cook right now is running on the tail end of the lead lap. Henry Bennett is 2 laps down. Nick DeGroot is 3 laps down. Henry Bennett is second in line for the lucky dog should a caution come out. Eric Schaus,
Cook's coming in.
The only car 1 lap down.
Cook just said on the radio he's coming in. Wagner is going to follow him down as well. These guys, remember, they were running up at the front end of this pack, so they had the least opportunity to fuel save this whole time by. Did Cook just go another lap?
He did indeed go another lap as Wagner is indeed going to come to pit lane. You see that sometimes too in super speedways, the mind games of I'm coming to pit road, drivers drive down pit lane thinking you're coming with them, and you can stay out an extra lap and kind of leave them hanging.
Here's the thing, and here's my view on it, is that anytime you're making a call like that over the radio, that's actually intended as a safety call to let people know that you're not going to rear-end them and those sorts of things. I don't think it's a strategy sort of thing. I don't think that people should be using that to create an advantage and throw the fake out. I really don't like any time that that's used in that manner.
Brooks comes down pit road from the 4th position. Cook in this time just in front of him. So now that turns the race lead over to Robert Maleska III. We mentioned the fact that it's been since Motegi that we saw him in a race. It's been even longer than that back at Auto Club in the early portion of August that we saw him last go to victory lane. So far this season, a 7-time pole sitter and a 4-time winner, and we'll see if maybe he can get back to his winning ways here tonight, as obviously mathematically out of the chance of being a back-to-back champion.
I'm just wondering when he's considering coming to pit lane. We've got 15 laps to go. Drivers are now hitting their maximum fuel limits. Hey, he just said he's coming. He's coming. It's this lap. This is critical.
Jay Hobson, Eric Peterson just pitted the last lap. You saw Hobson leaving pit road, and
no, okay, never mind.
Stay out an extra lap there. Mate Hysong going to stay out as well. We got some others coming. Jim Herrick, Dylan Moskowitz from unofficially 4th and 5th position coming down this time.
See how all of this, there's so much to unravel here yet, Seth. Just because of that wreck and who it took, which drivers it took out, who got involved in that one. That was critical. That was absolutely critical to everyone's races.
Let's going to stay out another lap. So right now we've got 5 drivers that have not pitted. Well, actually, technically 4 drivers on the lead lap that have yet to pit. Maleska, Hysong, Gail Brooks, and Joseph Morales. Eric Schaus right now running in the 5th position. First car 1 lap down, running right there actually in the tire tracks of Robert Maleska III, and he is still yet to come to pit lane as well as Moskowitz. He dropped a couple of spots there on the running order. Matt Wagner right now is ahead of Jim Herrick and Jim Brooks by about 3.5, 4 seconds. We're going to have to wait and see, though, where... Yeah, I think it is, too. But the question is, what about the 91 year of Maleska? Where is he going to be when everything cycles around? Because he's still in a pretty big pack of traffic here. Yes, he is.
Wrecking. We may have a caution.
And that is Moskowitz, I think. Peterson, the 36, and he got out of the way. No caution as he was able to get that car low, even with oncoming traffic.
That's really good job by those guys to get the car to prevent the caution. That's phenomenal. That is a phenomenal job to not clean anybody else up in that. That takes a lot of heads-up driving and practicing with damaged cars, which is so hard to replicate.
I'm shocked that didn't bring out a yellow flag.
Yeah, me too.
That car was almost practically stopped up there near the start-finish line, the front straightaway, up against the wall.
It's really interesting. I think iRacing instituted some changes just recently to their caution system as well. I've seen cautions triggering from a car just being sideways. Not the cars are saving it by and large. Maleska's in.
Maleska's in. Bennett's in. Here comes High Song, and there's the wounded 36 of Eric Peterson, who's just now made it around to pit lane entry as well. Brooks staying out an extra lap in the 71. Talk about another driver that's kind of come into his zone from last season to this season. 6th in the overall standings, and trying to see if he can maybe pick up his first victory on pit strategy. He was running about 3 seconds behind Robert Maleska III when Maleska dove onto pit lane.
I tell you what, Henry Bennett opted to not take tires there. I think that was actually the call of the race. I think a lot of these guys should have done that. Matt Wagner's just gone. Wagner did not take tires. Wagner didn't take tires. That's what it is. Smart call.
Only for the 11, and he is going to have a huge lead over Maleska and Jeff Hysong, and that very well might have iced it, depending on what happens here in the final 8.5, 7.5 laps. Gail Brooks onto pit road. Last driver to complete this is going to be the 72 of Eric Schaus, who, when he then comes to pit lane, will be falling off the lead lap once more. But right now, because he hasn't pit and Wagner has, he right now is on the lead lap. Now he's diving to pit road along with Nick DeGroot in the 89. So you will see the 11 of Matt Wagner momentarily jump up to the top of the leaderboard, and he will have a total of 7 laps to go here at Texas.
Yeah, Brooks is just exiting pit lane. Brooks is in with a shot here of a podium. I think Brooks may be able to take over the 2nd position here.
See if he can be able to hold off Maleska III and Jeff Hysong, but the
Henry
gap
Bennett's going to be
continues
crucial
to grow between Wagner and 2nd place. If you're Matt Wagner, I mean, I would think that right now you're hoping this thing stays green to the end. You don't want those guys to be on your back door with a chance of winning this race.
Especially with all the tires. Now, the reason why Wagner was able to do this, now, the problem with leading a pack like this is that you burn more fuel. The benefit of leading a pack like this is that you burn less tires. You get access to all that perfectly good, perfectly fresh air. It's undisturbed, flows over all your aero devices, and does everything it's supposed to do. It's just so sweet on all 4 of those tires, and that's the reason he's been able to pull this strategy off. Everyone else within the field would have been having problems with their tires tail end of that one because they were fighting in the pack, and they didn't have that aero working for them.
Talked about the strategy there for Gail Brooks, 2nd place, and over a 1.5 seconds ahead of 3rd place Robert Maleska III, so
Brooks
very much so
tires.
in line for a podium finish.
I've just had a look at the pit stop times. Gail Brooks did not take tires.
How about that? Wow. You know, you would maybe think that of a lot of the places we've gone to, Texas would be a place where you would want to have that fresh rubber, but it is playing out dividends for a couple of drivers in the closing stages here, and I'd have to double check, but I believe, yes, the 71 and the 11 are teammates out of Area 51 Racing, so no doubt, Matt Wagner telling teammate Gail Brooks, hey, don't take tires, you don't need to.
Yeah, that's, again, Gail Brooks, if you have a look and you have a remember, cast your mind back to a couple laps before those pit stops, Brooks was not actually attached to that lead pack. He wasn't pushing his tires all that hard. He was just sitting there, just playing himself in, biding his time. I also think that the reason he's so close to Matt Wagner is because he's fuel saved mega, which meant that his last stop was a lot shorter as well. So that's just a big call. The reason not to take tires here, normally any time that's a little bit earlier in the race and you're not limited and you're not restricted by the number of tires you take, you would just take them. Why would you do that? Well, the reason to do that is because you want grip, because you're going to be running a long race here. These guys came to pit road. There's under 10 laps left in the race. I've only got to run with bad tires for 10 laps. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Let's not even contemplate that.
Last season, Matt Wagner was a two-time winner. He won the season opener and he won the season finale. He had a win earlier on this season at Watkins Glen for the second time in 2 seasons. He is going to be a multi-time winner as he takes the checkered flag here tonight at Texas.
And I tell you what, if this race had run another 2 laps, Gale Brooks would have gotten to his rear bumper. He just caught the draft off of Wagner.
Oh, wow. 1-2 finish there for Area 51 Racing. 3rd and 4th for the Twisted Trojan Motorsports cars. Jim Herrick going to complete the top 5. He, Hobson, and Brooks were in a pretty good battle there for the 5th position in the closing stages. They all finished within about 0.3 of a second of each other. Hobson 6th, Brooks in 7th. Moskowitz and Morales are going to be the last drivers to finish on the lead lap in 8th and 9th place, but Wagner, how about the momentum for a guy heading into the Indianapolis 500 weekend as the defending winner? He'll be heading in as a 2-time winner here in Season 4 of the Dark Horse Racing Series.
Yeah, and have a look at the teammates, nose to nose here on the front stretch so they can do their burnouts together. At the end of the race, it looks like Gale Brooks actually has the stronger engine. I mean, look at them playing tug-of-war right here.
Great run for both of those drivers. Gale Brooks, I believe this is his best finish of his career. Matt Wagner, as mentioned, finding victory lane once again this season. 2nd straight year where he's a multi-time winner. He came into tonight's event out of the championship picture, 4th in the overall stands, 156 points back. But regardless of that fact, this has got to feel good. And, you know, for some of those guys as well that knew that they were mathematically out of the championship, that might have been why we saw all these different varying strategies in the closing stages, not only like the final 10 laps, but even the final 20 or 25 laps, because of the fact that they had nothing to lose. There was no championship on the line. If it worked, you might get a race trophy out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've got to 100% throw caution to the wind. You've got to try and do something different. You've got to do these sorts of things. Ultimately, late in the season, it's not necessarily about racing for a championship for some of these guys that are a little bit lower down. It's just come out here, have fun, see what you can do, try something different. And I tell you what, Seth, I'm just here and I'm just doing some math on the points. I think that's enough for Ravon to lock it up. He finishes in P16. P16 nets him 24 points. Henry Bennett finishes in P12, which will net him 22 points. So the difference is 4 points there. So the margin goes, if I jump over here to my points page, from 54 points down to 50 points. It's alive. It is alive, but it's now a mathematical improbability. Henry Bennett would have to take every bonus point that is on offer to him. So 2 for a pole, 1 for a fastest lap. Actually, did Bennett qualify on pole? I think he did.
Outside the front row.
Outside the front row. So he doesn't get that. If he took a fastest lap, the gap is 1 closer. If he led a lap, which I believe Bennett did at one stage, then he's 1 closer as well.
So.
And if he took a 0x race, which we can guarantee that he actually did not. So there's a lot of if, buts, and maybes, but basically for Bennett to keep his championship alive and have a shot, he would have to win, he would have to clean sweep the bonus points, and Rick Ravon would have to either not show up or finish 25th or further back with 0 bonus points. If Rick Ravon runs a 0x race next week, it is over.
There is one thing that could play into Henry Bennett's favor, and it is a long shot, and that's the fact that it is the Indianapolis 500. It's the biggest race of the season. You're going to see a lot of drivers that maybe we even haven't seen during the course of this season that are going to try and qualify for that. More than likely, we will have a full 33-car field, and so that's a lot more points available to make this point situation maybe a little bit more of a reality for Henry Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, There's a lot of if, buts, and maybes, but basically, Bennett has to have the best possible race, the cleanest best possible race, the perfect race. Nothing can go wrong at any stage throughout 200 laps of the Indianapolis 500, and it all has to go wrong for Rick Ravon. Those are the only possible circumstances that sees Bennett take the title.
Well, we had a lot of different scenarios coming into Texas tonight, and it certainly surprised us with a couple of interesting cautions during the course of this race. So we'll have to see if Indianapolis has a storybook ending for us in about a week's time. But let's go down trackside, see if we can get some words with our podium finishers. And let's kick things off with our third place finisher here tonight, Robert Maleska III.
Hi.
Hey, Robert, it's Seth and Scott up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
And I mean, we saw this race in the closing stages really come down to strategy. We had that late race yellow that had only 4 of you guys on the lead lap. And then it kind of came down between you 4 in terms of whether to take on tires or not. You were one of the drivers that elected to take on the Firestones. I mean, it looked like at least in terms of lap times, you were faster, but just couldn't make up that gap.
Yeah, I thought not taking tires would be pretty sketchy on pit exit. That's kind of my whole why I took tires there, because I knew speed would be relatively close. I was just worried about that pit exit and maybe spinning. So I opted for the more grip on exit. But yeah, congrats to Matt and everyone whoever finished top 4 there, because I think we pit on lap 40 and stretched it, and we got pretty lucky with that caution where put all the main contenders a lap down.
I mean, it was just a critical time for that caution to come out, but then that last pit lane strategy, that was so critical as well. The 2 cars ahead of you just opted to not take tires on that last stop. Do you think that that's maybe a missed opportunity for you tonight?
I guess yeah, but I think it seemed like it was pretty hard to pass the leader. I guess with the older tires, maybe they would come off the bottom more, but yeah, I mean, took a few weeks off here, so seems like I'm basically out of the championship. So kind of just here to have fun, get some good finishes, and some momentum for next season.
We saw you qualified up there inside of the podium, started 3rd in this race, but 1 year ago you dominated this race, led 71 of the 120 laps. I mean, what are some of the things you can kind of look back on in this race that were big differences between this season's Texas race and last season's Texas race?
I think last season I was kind of just, Sato style, just all attack. While this race I kind of saw how crazy it was early, and I just dropped back to ride. And I think that's what Wagner did too. And look at it, it worked out well, for both of us and everyone that was kind of up there racing really hard for the lead. Didn't get so fortunate. So yeah, I think a big thing is just for Wagner and myself, really, we just kind of took care of our stuff and played the long game with pitting every caution, and luckily it paid off for both of us.
Well, Robert, it was great to see you back in the field here tonight. Congratulations on a great performance. 3rd place podium finish here tonight at Texas. And now we'll give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, thanks to Troy Lee Designs, sponsoring the series, HyperX, all the Dark Horse admins for putting it on.
That's Robert Maleska III, your 3rd place finisher here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway. Congratulations once again. Best of luck next week in the Indy 500 qualifying, as well as that main event next Saturday.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
If we can get our 2nd place finisher, Gale Brooks, it is indeed his best finish of his career, bettering his 3rd place finish back at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway earlier on this season. Hey, Gale, Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir. Gotcha.
Man, I mean, Scott pointed this out when the checkered flag waved. If you had a couple more laps, you might have had a shot at your teammate to pick up this victory, just catching on to the slipstream on that final lap. I mean, and do you kind of wish that this race had been maybe 122, 123 laps instead of the 120?
Yes and no. I feel like I kind of stole one there, even with the second. Honestly, I was talking with Henry coming to the last couple laps. Like I was like, should we like if I leapfrog with you, will that help us maybe catch Matt? Because I was trying to because I'm more of a stock car oval guy, so I'm used to kind of just trying to almost push the car in front of them. But I know it's like don't push these cars; it's going to end poorly. So yeah, I was talking to Henry. I was like, well, what's the best approach? But we were both. I think all three of us actually we did splash of fuel on that last stop and. I said those cars definitely weren't very happy driving after that one, but yeah, it would have been nice to try to get just into that draft range. But like I said, I kind of feel like I came out of that one stealing a handful of spots that I probably didn't deserve. And I definitely had to before I get too far along. I really want to apologize, Jeff Hysong. I'm glad he recovered to finish fourth. But I felt terrible. I just straight washed up into him out of two. He had nothing he could do to avoid that one. So to recover from that and even be in contention at the end was really lucky, I feel like, on my part.
I mean, talk to us about tire strategies, about everything, because I think Wagner really looked after those tires quite well over the course of tonight, and opting to not take tires in that last stop. That's a very risky strategy. You said you're a stock car guy. In a stock car scenario, the pit stops are a lot longer. That difference of a splash versus tires is somewhere in the realm of 10 seconds. But over the course of 10 laps, you'd make that up. IndyCars, it's very different. It's that mixed world where you're just trying to read and learn strategy the whole time, isn't it?
It really is, and that was kind of when I looked. When we got onto that final green flag run, I was looking at the fuel the entire time, kind of adjusting basically as the race progressed. I was literally just fuel save that entire time, trying to stay in the draft and just save every drop I could. I think I had it down to like 3 gallons basically, and I knew that was going to be a lot quicker than taking tires. So I figured it's like, well, the risk I think will pay off because it's so hard to pass these guys. They're all so good at what they do. And so Matt and I were talking about it too. What surprised me though is Matt actually short pitting and doing the splash of fuel. I was really nervous for him on that part of it because let's say Matt and I working on the same team, so we were in the communication a lot there. I was really nervous because I mean you go a lap down once that happens, and then you hope for no yellows, and these things get really loose at the very end of the fuel runs when they get light. So I was a little nervous for him. And then when everybody else started pitting in, I was like, man, a caution now would be really good. But yeah, basically once the car got back up to speed, it felt pretty comfortable. I felt okay. It was just that pit exit. That was where you're really on pins and needles. I really wanted to get more aggressive on it, but I knew if I did, it was gonna be race over. So I knew I had pushed my luck already going into this one. So I was like, let's just play it smart and maybe get a chance to chase Matt down at the end.
Let's take a look at something coming into tonight and including tonight that might play into what we see in next week's Indianapolis 500. There are a number of races we could look back at during the course of the season where we've seen pit strategy and untimely yellows come out right in the middle of green flag pit stops. You guys are going to be on pit road a lot in the Indy 500. A lot of the stuff that we've seen take place during the course of the season with those yellows coming out in the middle of green flag pit stops. How much is that going to play into the varying strategies when we eventually get to the Art of Bricks?
You're exactly right. And this, I say, and of course, Indy being its own little animal, that in Pocono, where if you're within distance, you can make that green flag stop and not go the lap down. I say it opens up a lot of opportunities for strategies and things of that nature. So I say it's that risk versus reward, of course, of what's better. Do you want to have the clean air pit early, or do you want to stay in the draft and maybe have some more speed that way? So yeah, it's going to be really interesting, especially with us running the DW12s over there this year. I say last season we ran the IR18s, which was a blast. So I say it's going to be a little bit of a new animal there. So I think, like I said, there's going to be a lot of pit stops at Indy, and the strategies are going to be, I'm sure, just all over the place because, I mean, like I said, these guys, I mean, I look at the names from these guys and I look at some of the other leagues that they race in, and it's just like I said, to be in the top three against like Roberts and Matts, and of course I say unfortunately they didn't have good nights, but Henry and Rick and company, I mean, those guys are monsters just everywhere with these IR18 cars, DW12 cars. So it's going to be definitely an uphill challenge to try to chase them down.
Well, Gail, best finish of your Dark Horse Racing Series career, second place here tonight. Congratulations. Great momentum for you heading into that Indianapolis 500 weekend. And now we're going to give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout outs.
Yeah, I mean, let's say first off, obviously gotta thank the teammates with the Area 51 racing team. Obviously, Matt Wagner, hell of a job for him getting the win tonight. Say my dad, say Jim Brooks, a great recovery. It's a little bit of a bummer. Say didn't quite pan out as well as he would have hoped to, but still getting into seventh was a good run for him as well. And then definitely missing Gary Corley. So he got some computer issues, so definitely miss Gary. Hopefully see him back on track soon. But then I mean, I just honestly I gotta thank you guys. Let's say obviously Scott, we got to talk a little bit on last night, of course, and then here and there as well. So I'm gonna call you my good luck charm going forward here. So once I got kind of hooked up with you, it seems like we've both had good results on both of our ends. So I say maybe we can keep that moving forward. But yeah, just I really want to thank the Dark Horse guys for putting all this on. I say obviously a lot of great sponsors. I'll say I'm not gonna be able to pick them all up, unfortunately, but I know like. We've got the Troy Lee Designs and HyperX. I say that it's really cool to have these awesome partners that Charles and Eric and all the admins do such an awesome job to put it all up on board. So, and of course, really got to thank Jim Herrick at lmcgear.com. I say he does a lot for both leagues as well. So it's cool to see such good groups of people kind of supporting the leagues, and it just makes it so much fun. And it makes it feel, let's say, it puts that little extra, where it's a sim, it's for fun, but I say all those little things definitely go a long way. And then, of course, like I said, just really want to thank you guys. I say it's always a pleasure to. I've been on your side of the booth, and then to be able to race it too. I know exactly how much work you guys put in. So, just huge hats off to you guys for putting on such great shows week in and week out.
Well, that's Gail Brooks. He gets second place here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway and takes that momentum, as mentioned, into next week's Indianapolis 500 weekend. Congratulations on the great run there, Gail, and of course, best of luck next week when we head to Indy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Let's go down to victory lane. Second time this season, Matt Wagner hoists a checkered flag here tonight. It's at Texas. Matt, Scott, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I do.
Oh, man. I mean, tonight was quite an interesting race leading into the Indy 500, a race that you know very well. Of course, going to be heading into that one as the defending winner. But, I mean, I got to ask you, the timing of that yellow flag coming out at that point in time, did you think, I've got this thing in hand?
I was more worried trying to get on pit road. I actually had 0.3 gallons to get back. It was I was really almost biting my nails there. That was very close, but that caution was very timely, and it really helped me and Robert to get up to position where we can fight for the win here.
Matt, the weeks that you do qualify, you seem to do quite well in.
I really thought that was a great lap. I really did. I know you've been hustling me about my qualifying efforts, but I really thought that was a great lap. And I say I nailed it. And I'm looking at the board. I'm like, oh, man, I suck again. But all in all, it was a top 5 starting spot. And you are correct. If I do qualify well, I do something in the race. And it turned out very good.
You mentioned about just barely being able to make it to pit lane with what you had in the tank there, but your work didn't stop at that point. We ended up seeing you in a hornet's nest surrounded by a bunch of lap machines. Schaus, Cook, Bennett, DeGroot, all trying to get their laps back. I mean, how difficult is it when you've got guys that are trying to get around, get their laps back, all the while making sure you don't make contact with them, and at the same time trying to maintain the gap between you and Maleska, who is the next car behind you?
It's really nervous. Hopefully I don't get crashed. I was a time where I was really scared of Cook, who went to the inside, but I'm not sure if he passed in the grass or not, or if I left space there. So that was really tooth and nail there. Ooh, that was one of my scary moments during the race.
One final question for you, too. It's kind of twofold, including Texas tonight and Indianapolis next week. Unfortunately, came in tonight mathematically not eligible to be in the championship picture. But does that kind of take the pressure off of you to not only approach here tonight at Texas, but also next week at Indy to try and be a back-to-back winner there? In terms of your strategy, I mean, we saw you stay out extra along with a couple of other drivers when most of the leaders came to pit road. Does it give you a little bit more flexibility to be a little bit more unorthodox with your strategy? Be a little bit more aggressive.
Well, it certainly does, but it still ain't gonna change my strategy. I stick with my strategy, come planned like I did last year, and it panned out. But as you remember, last year I had that connection issue and came back a lap down, and that was horrifying. So I kept my cool, and so right now I'm going to keep my cool going into Indianapolis, and me being aggressive is probably not going to be my strong suit. I was going to take my time, and whatever happens, happens. As far as the championship goes, I'm not really of a championship caliber person. I don't have them traits, as you would say, like a Nick DeGroot or Robert Maleska or a Henry Bennett. But I feel like I'm somewhere upward in that caliber, maybe. But as far as next week goes, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Can I give you some tips, Wagner? Yeah, I mean, you're just too slow, mate. You got to work on those driving abilities. I mean, student becomes the master over here, right? So you just got to follow me around the track. I'll give you some tips. It's okay. I love you, buddy.
I love you too. But didn't I pass you yesterday?
Oh, all right. Okay.
Shots fired.
But just to bring something up here, this is a little bit of redemption of 2 seasons ago. I got crashed going for the lead about 2-3 laps ago here at Texas, and this place owes me one. I remember it well. I think it was me and Dylan and Covey fighting for the win, and Dylan got sideways and he got into me and ended my race, and that was really big disappointment because I was coming through the field like it was no other. So redemption has been earned here, and it feels pretty good to win one here at Texas.
Well, one thing that we can definitely call you going into next week, Matt, is a back-to-back multi-time winner in the past 2 seasons as a 2-time winner here in season 4, carrying that momentum into Indianapolis, and we look forward to seeing if you can maybe be a back-to-back Indy 500 champion as well. Congratulations on the victory here tonight. We're now turning the mic over to you for some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
All right. I'd like to thank HyperX, ALMC Gear, of course, Troy Lee Designs, and the admin team for putting this stuff together, Henry Bennett with the setups, and Team Area 51, me, Gael, and Jim as a unit. That last strategy call was wonderful. I made the call of pitting early. It panned out, and he did the same thing. He came in with fuel only. I'm happy for both of us. What a great day for us. 1-2 finish.
Well, he said Texas owed him one. Texas has paid its debt. Matt Wagner is your victor here tonight at the Texas Motor Speedway. Congratulations once again, Matt, and best of luck next week when we get to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Looking forward to it, guys. We'll see you then.
That's going to finish things up here tonight at Texas. We knew that Texas was going to play its part into the championship battle. Little did we know what it had in store for us. Still a shot, still a very slim shot for Henry Bennett to get the championship from Rick Ravon. But don't let that discourage anybody from tuning in to the Indy 500, because last season, Matt Wagner, yes, he won that race, but it was 18 one-thousandths of a second over Henry Bennett. So Indianapolis Motor Speedway, even though the championship the last 2 seasons hasn't necessarily been on the line between one and more drivers, it has definitely brought about an exciting finish to cap off the year.
Here's the thing. Indy 500 is exciting because it's the Indy 500. I don't care if this is a part of a championship. I want to see guys show up, and I just want to see them run the Indy 500 and have a bunch of fun. And hell, man, I'd love to be out there winning an Indy 500, even if I'm not a part of the championship, even if I'm not a part of Dark Horse. You name it. This is so much fun, and the benefit is we go into Indy 500, clean slate, we get to have some fun. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So again, Wednesday night next week, we may be bringing you coverage of the Indy 500 pole day qualifying. That is still up in the air, so be sure to just tune in case we end up bringing you coverage of pole day qualifying. And we will be bringing you the Indianapolis 500 on Saturday next week. That is going to, once again, be a week from this coming Saturday. Green flag scheduled to fly at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the afternoon. Can Matt Wagner be a back-to-back Indy 500 champion? Craig Forsyth will look to do the same as he won the Indy 500 back in Season 2. Or will we have a new driver hoist the Indy 500 trophy? The championship still on the line as well. Can Rick Ravon hold off the last-ditch effort of Henry Bennett to be able to capture the championship in his debut season? All these questions will be answered and more when the green flag eventually flies over the yard of bricks. Scott, can't wait for that one. Great race here tonight at Texas leading into that season finale. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Oh, man, I mean, appreciate me joining you in the booth. Man, again, I've said it week in, week out, Dark Horse provides fantastic racing. Dark Horse is where I want to be on my Thursday mornings.
Absolutely. Well, for me, my Wednesday nights, but I agree with most of that sentiment. Thanks to everybody that tuned in to our coverage here this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, be sure to join us next week for the Indianapolis 500 to cap off the 4th season of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night, folks, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.